All right. So before we bring Miss Melanie back, she asked me to share a little bit of a mindset piece this morning. And I love beautiful food. We're talking about, how to make beautiful dishes, how to eat more plant-based and make it an enjoyable experience for all. But we need to understand the why behind that. We want to start with the why in everything that we do, right? Why do we now eat to live instead of live to eat, as Miss Jane shared, right? There's got to be a reason behind that, a foundational reason. And what I have learned in my experience is that what we do and we say what we say because we think what we think. And so our thoughts determine our actions and words, but it goes even deeper than that because we think what we think because of the beliefs that we hold in our heart. And you think, oh, well, beliefs in food, like, aren't we getting a little bit deep and weird here? Not really, because everything we do and say comes back to what we are believing about ourselves, about the world that God put us in, about how we're supposed to show up in the world. And so I want us to take a few moments this morning and just evaluate a little bit our beliefs around food and its purpose in our lives and its purpose in helping us fulfill our purpose. Now, we have to eat to live, correct? Like, you would agree with that, right? We have to eat to live. And so if we're going to do that, what's the further purpose of that? What's behind all that? What am I believing about the food that I am eating to live? And how can I use it as a tool to help me accomplish my purpose in life? Right? And in my case, just to give you an example, my husband and I travel a lot working with different event hosts like Miss Melanie. We also speak at a lot of events. We're starting a new speaker association that will take us to even more of those. And as we get to travel, we get to meet up with people who are in our audience. We get to host gatherings over a meal generally. Right? And so what is that food doing? It's creating an excuse. It's creating an opportunity for us to gather people together for greater connection that serves our purpose of lifting up speakers, authors, educators, entrepreneurs in our space, right? Bringing them together, connecting them. Would they go out of their way just to come and spend 20 minutes with a small group of people they don't know? I don't know if they would or not. Some probably would, some probably wouldn't. But if we have to eat anyway and we can plan it around a meal, suddenly the excuse that we have to eat becomes an opportunity for us to greater fulfill our purpose of bringing people together and connecting them and helping them towards their purpose. When I get to meet Priscilla in Arizona and I get to connect her with my other friend from Arizona, and you two find a connection where you can collaborate and be better because you now know each other and can use each other's gifts and resources, right? Now you're better prepared to go out into the world. And so food becomes a foundational tool that I can use to better fulfill my purpose. In my family life, food becomes something that we gather around. When we are at home with our children during a work week or a school week, our midday meal is our main meal. And we gather our children around the table and we have our main meal together. And that is the time where we relate with one another, where we discuss what's going on in their lives, what's going on in the world. It's a teaching time where we get to hear their hearts and be able to guide them and ask them the questions that are helping to establish their beliefs about the world and their purpose. And so food, again, is a tool that we get to use to be able to do that. And when food is beautiful, when food becomes an occasion, not just something I have to do, then it's so much more powerful to bring people together for those kinds of experiences. We use food for celebrations. Food becomes the basis of let's get together for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday celebrations, right? All of these special things, anniversaries, special accomplishment celebrations, graduations, it's all centered around food because food is the tool that we get to use to bring us together to accomplish that greater impact that we want to have. And so even as you're thinking about how you're plating things for different occasions or how you're going to cook for different occasions, how you're going to set your tables for different occasions, I also want you to be thinking about the belief behind that. I get to do what I do with the food that I'm using for this occasion so that what? And we do that in marketing all the time, right? This is what I do. Why? So that you can blank. And that's what we do with that's what we want to do with the tool of beautiful food in our lives, is use it as one of those jumping off points so that we can better accomplish our purpose with the people that we're bringing together. And when you think about it that way, then you get to believe that food is not just something that I have to eat to live. But now I believe that food becomes a tool for my purpose. Now I believe food becomes a tool I can use for mentorship. Now food is a tool that I can use to bring people in and have a chance to pour into their lives. I'm thinking right now of my late grandfather. And anytime we would go to his house, the first thing he would say was either, "Oh, there you are," as if he'd been waiting for us to walk in the door all day, or he'd say, "Merry Christmas," and make us smile, right? But one of the things that he often did out in the garage attached to the house was he'd be like, "Come help me with this. I got a project. I need some help." And he'd take us out into his workshop and he'd be, something mechanical happening. "Hand me that wrench. I need that screw. I got to go find a little ring this size. Can you find that over there on the bench full of all this stuff piled, And what I realized the older I got is that Grandpa always had a project, but it wasn't about the projects. I was the project. Because as we worked, he would ask me about school. He would ask me about my goals. He would ask me about my relationships. How's it going with your mom and, with your sister and those kinds of things. And he would use that opportunity to pour into me those lessons that he had learned, to pour into me the relationship goals or the relationship rules that were necessary for me to continue to grow and mature. And so for him, the project became the tool for mentorship. It became the tool for influence. And so many times in our lives, we can use the tool of something as simple as food, as simple and beautiful as the food that we're using, to use it as a tool, but it has to start with the belief. Why am I doing this? What's the bigger purpose here behind it? What do I want to accomplish with this? And so as we get started today, I want you to think about why you do what you do with food. When you're hosting a dinner, when you're creating a dinner for yourself versus when you're hosting a dinner or something for someone else. And I want you to think about, with those two things, maybe put it on your page, food for me or food to share with others, two categories. And I want you to think, why do I do what I do when I'm choosing and preparing food for myself? And why do I do what I do when I'm choosing and preparing food for others? And I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to journal on this. I don't know if we can put music on or not, but we'll just take some quiet time here and just think through, what is the belief behind it? Why do you use the food the way that you do, or the way that you want to, because now you have more information around how to do it? And what's going to be your belief system that motivates you from here on out? So we'll give you a couple minutes just to journal through that. Jane says in the chat, I use it to get my families together on Sundays. And my grandparents used to do the same. We would almost every week, we could almost you just guarantee we were going to be at grandma's for lunch after church on Sunday. And one of the ways my grandmother used food was to show people how much she cared. She would use the food as the tool or the avenue that opened a door to go into people's homes if there was a death in the family, if there was someone who was sick, if there was someone who'd had an accident, or even a celebration, a graduation or something like that. She never went empty-handed. She always took a plate of something, a plate of cookies or a pie or a loaf of bread or some dish that she had made. And she used that. I learned that from her. My dad will sometimes comment on how I show love with food because that was something that grandma always did. She used the food as a tool to be able to show people that she loved them. She'd spent time making this, thinking of them, and used it as an excuse to open that door for conversation and be able to encourage them. So, anyone want to share something from what you wrote down just there, Jane?
Yes. So food for me is really nutrition and anti-inflammatory so that I don't get migraine headaches. My mom's family had 8 siblings, and all of them had breast cancer. And so I always lived with the fear that I was going to have, because it just kept going back generation after generation. Even the even the men in the family had breast cancer, and so my mom and my dad passed away both by the time I was 27.
Hmm.
And so I lived with this fear that I was going to get cancer. And one of my aunts was a nurse, and she said, "You don't have to get cancer. If you eat right and you don't eat all this sugar and all this flour and all these processed food, you don't have to get it."
Right.
And so that's really, once I learned that, that's really kind of been my mantra throughout my life as far as fixing food for myself and my family. And as far as food for family, like I said, we have our children and grandchildren over every Sunday.
Uh
The
huh.
ones who count, some are at college, but at least they know we're here and come if you. And they bring their significant others, their boyfriends and their girlfriends, and it's a tradition. It really is tradition, and we
Yeah.
learn. We keep up with them, and then for friends, I actually worked my whole life, and those were my friends. But now I'm beginning to discover, friends in our community that were acquaintances because of our kids, but we really didn't have time to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
So now I use it to like get to know better the people that I've been acquaintances with all these years, but never really got to know them.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Priscilla, you want to share anything around your beliefs?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. It was great to hear your examples.
Yeah.
You know, I love this exercise. It's the perfect timing. And in terms of food for me, I remember sitting with Pastor Steve here at my church probably 2 years ago, and we gather and we connect over food. And so we were talking about the purpose of food. And it really brought into a greater presence. It's just for energy, right? And and energy for what? For God's purpose
Mm-hmm.
in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I really knew my calling, in helping women called for more. And especially recently, and after a little wake up call versus a health scare, I had an opportunity to reset.
Mm.
And I was definitely comfort eating. I was eating, like, the purpose for food was comforting me during
Right.
like divorce, separation, and selling a ranch and all the hard stuff, and in wine and things like that. So now food is a sacred space. It's really viewing and respecting my body as a temple,
Mm-hmm.
that this is a gift that God gave me, fueling the mission, which is helping other women fuel their mission, self care, wonderful mindfulness practice. It's energy and creativity. One of my careers, I was a celebrity fashion stylist in London, England, and so as we were, as Melanie was, you were all creating the avocado tartare. I'm like, oh my God, this is like salad styling. You know what I mean? So just like anything creative,
Mm-hmm.
this really inspired me. But food to share with others. I also grew up with an amazing grandmother in Indiana and matriarchal family. We cooked, we ate, we did dishes and planned the next meal, you know. But it was also, you know, she grew most of it, you know, or she got it from other farmers. So, and that's an expression of my love for others. There's an art in gathering, and I love creating, you know, beautiful, magical experiences, culinary artistry, and one that inspires other people to go like, oh my gosh, that's plant-based, you know, and this is so yummy and it's so easy, and you know, if that inspires them, like Melanie came over once and just did some roasted vegetables while we were watching a leap mastery day, and it was during it was a hard season, and it was not just comforting. I felt so much better than just diving into a hamburger with French fries, aioli, and a glass of white red
Yeah.
wine. You know what I mean? And then also growth. I think food is growth, and for myself and others, and also in doing my retreats, really being mindful about the kind of food that I'll be incorporating.
Yeah, I love that.
Women can be connected to their own energy. So that's it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you brought up the energy piece because everything in our life has a vibration, of electromagnetic vibration. Like we live in an electromagnetic field. And when you get close to someone else, another human, your electromagnetic fields intersect and it actually increases. It's almost like a battery being charged. Or it can drain you, you know, because sometimes magnets can either attract or they can repel. And so when you get into an electromagnetic field and you have a connection with someone else, that connection of physically being in each other's presence within 6 feet of each other, your fields around you, because your field goes out about 6 feet from you. And when those fields intersect, your body is physically getting a recharge physiologically because of the connection with that other human. If that other human and you do not connect for some reason, it's like a repelling, and that's why you feel drained after being with certain people, right? And so again, using food as an opportunity to bring people together and to make those connections. And you're pouring into them physiologically, you're pouring into them emotionally, you're pouring into each other verbally and spiritually in many cases. All because of this beautiful food that also carries a vibration for us. And certain foods make you feel a certain way or make you feel a different way because of the vibrations and how it interacts with your unique body. And it's so fascinating and so interesting. But I think that you all did fabulous with this exercise and really being able to internalize the beliefs around the food. And I'm really, really excited to bring Melanie back up to the stage now and let her carry on from here to be able to go into the rest of our creation day.
She has me crying in a good way. Oh, the little hearts. Oh my gosh, y'all, I love you. So I wanted to come out here when Katie was speaking. She brought goosebumps to me. She brought happy tears to me. She brought visualizations to me, thinking about things. But I also took a couple of notes that I want to share while you're here with me.
Of course.